It was another long morning for Lena. The alarm had already gone off twice, and the twins were still asleep, their small hands clutching each other on the narrow bed they shared. She watched them for a second, smiling softly. They looked peaceful when they slept, like the world couldn't touch them. But once the day began, it was always a race against time, against bills, against exhaustion. She slipped into the tiny kitchen, careful not to wake them. The old refrigerator made a humming sound that filled the silence. She opened it and sighed. Half a bottle of milk, some bread, and leftover rice from last night, that was all. Payday was still 2 days away. She picked up her phone and started typing a grocery list, whispering to herself as she wrote. Milk, cereal, eggs, apples, snacks for the twins. She smiled at that part. They loved those tiny chocolate cookies that cost more than she could afford. But sometimes she bought them anyway, just to see their eyes light up. After sending the list to her friend Mia, she made coffee and sat by the window. Outside, the street was already alive. Kids ran toward the school bus, car horns blared, and a vendor shouted about fresh vegetables. It was noisy but familiar, the kind of sound that reminded her she was still moving forward. No matter how tired she was, Lena worked 2 jobs, mornings at a small grocery store and evenings as an online assistant. Life hadn't been kind to her, but she never complained. There wasn't time for that. After all, the twins needed her. She was both their mother and father, nurse and teacher, comfort and safety. Her phone buzzed again. A message. She glanced at it while sipping coffee, but froze when she saw the name. Her heart skipped. It wasn't Mia. It was him. Ethan. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. His name brought back years of memories. Laughter, late-night talks, promises that had turned into silence. She hadn't spoken to him in 5 years. Not since the day she walked out of his life with nothing but a small suitcase and a secret she never shared. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the message. It wasn't a message from him. It was her grocery list. She had sent it to him by mistake. Her stomach dropped. "Oh no," she whispered, covering her face with her hand. How could she have done that? She had his number saved from years ago, though she never used it. It must have been next to Mia's in her contacts, and she must have tapped the wrong one. She felt a rush of embarrassment. What must he think? That she was begging for money? That she was struggling? She shook her head and muttered, "It's fine. He probably changed his number years ago." Trying to laugh it off, she set her phone aside and got ready for work. The twins woke up, sleepy-eyed and cheerful. They were 5 now, full of questions and energy.
"Mommy, can we have pancakes?"
One of them asked, tugging at her sleeve. "Not today, sweetheart," she said with a smile, brushing their hair back. "We'll have toast. Pancakes on the weekend, okay?" They nodded and went back to playing with their toys on the floor. She looked at them and felt that familiar ache, love mixed with worry. Every night she told herself she'd give them more. More comfort, more happiness, more everything. But no matter how hard she worked, it never seemed enough. By the time she dropped them off at preschool and caught the bus to the grocery store, the morning sun was already warm. She sat near the window, the city rushing past in flashes of color and noise. Her thoughts drifted again to Ethan. She wondered what he was doing now. Probably sitting in an office high above the city, surrounded by people in suits planning things that changed lives. He had always been ambitious, even when they were young. Back then, he used to say, "One day I'll build something big enough for both of us." She used to believe him. Until that night, the night when everything fell apart. He accused her of something she didn't do, and she was too proud to explain. That was the last time she saw him. She took a deep breath and shook her head. There was no point thinking about it. That chapter was closed. At work, things were busy. Customers came and went, buying snacks, drinks, and groceries. Lena smiled through the day, greeting everyone politely. But her body ached. She didn't have time to sit. By afternoon, her legs felt heavy and her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten lunch. She couldn't afford to buy food there. When she finally checked her phone during her break, her eyes widened. There were 3 missed calls, from an unknown number, and one message, "Lena, is this you?" She froze. The voice in her memory came back instantly. Ethan, it couldn't be. She hadn't heard from him in years, and now, out of all days, this? Her chest tightened as she stared at the screen. A part of her wanted to delete the message, pretend it never happened. But another part, The one that still remembered the warmth of his voice couldn't. She typed slowly, "Sorry, I sent that by mistake. Please ignore." Then she locked her phone and put it away, hoping that would be the end of it. But deep down, she knew things were never that simple. When her shift ended, the sky had already turned orange. She picked up the twins, bought a loaf of bread, and walked home. The streetlights flickered as she climbed the stairs to her apartment. Inside, the twins played with their crayons while she made dinner, rice and vegetables. It wasn't much, but they didn't complain. After tucking them in, she finally sat down to rest. She leaned back on the couch, closed her eyes, and tried to relax. Then her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a message, it was a bank notification. At first she thought it was spam, but when she opened it, her breath caught. It said, "Deposit received $500,000. She stared at the screen, unable to move. That couldn't be right. Maybe it was an error. Maybe someone hacked her account. But the sender name below it made her blood run cold. Ethan Holdings, Inc. Her hands shook as she scrolled to the next message. It was from him. "Lena, I got your grocery list. You must have sent it by mistake. But I saw the note at the end. Don't forget snacks for the twins. Lena." "Are they mine?" She dropped the phone onto her lap, staring at the wall in silence. Her mind spun in every direction, shock, fear, guilt, confusion. She had kept the truth from him for years, not out of hate, but because she wanted peace. He had his own life now, a world she no longer belonged to, but fate had other plans. She picked up the phone again, her fingers trembling as she typed. "You shouldn't have sent that money. Please take it back." She deleted it before sending. What could she even say? How do you tell someone that their past mistake led to a life they never knew existed? She looked toward the bedroom door where the twins slept. Their tiny shoes sat by the door, their drawings taped to the wall. Everything in that room, the laughter, the love, the sleepless nights, Mabadiman, was built by her alone. And yet part of them belonged to him too. Her heart ached. Not because of the money, not because of the message, but because the truth had finally found its way back to her door. She spent the rest of the night sitting in silence, staring at the message on her screen. Outside, rain began to fall, tapping gently on the window. She didn't reply. She couldn't. Not yet. In that small apartment, surrounded by the quiet breathing of her children, Lena realized something she had avoided for years. The past was no longer behind her. It had just knocked on her door, holding the one secret she thought she had buried forever. She turned off her phone, took a deep breath, and whispered softly, "Not tonight." Then she closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come easily, because deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. The morning after the bank deposit, Lena felt a heaviness she hadn't known before. She moved around her small apartment quietly, making breakfast for the twins and packing their little backpacks for preschool. But her mind was elsewhere. Every sound seemed louder, every shadow longer. The message from Ethan played in her mind over and over. She had always imagined how she would meet him again, maybe by chance in a coffee shop, maybe at a friend's party, never like this, through a mistaken message and a sudden, enormous transfer of money. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and strangely a little surreal. The twins chattered happily, unaware of the storm swirling inside their mother. They were easy to love, and Lena held that thought tightly. Her gaze lingered on their smiling faces as they ate breakfast, their tiny hands gripping spoons and spilling cereal, their hair sticking up in every direction. Somehow she had to protect this world she had built for them, no matter what Ethan's arrival might mean. After school drop-off, Lena went straight to the small coffee shop where she sometimes sat to work in peace. She needed a quiet place to think. Her laptop sat open, but the screen blurred as her thoughts circled one point: Ethan. She tried to block him out, telling herself that money didn't matter, that the twins didn't need him, that she had done fine without him. But there was no ignoring the reality that he now knew about them. Her phone buzzed again. Her heart jumped. Another message. She stared at it, almost afraid to open it. "Lena, I'll be in town tomorrow. I want to see them. I need to see them. Can we meet?" Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She wanted to delete it. She wanted to pretend she didn't see it. But another part of her, the part that remembered laughter in the rain, late-night talks and dreams shared in quiet rooms, couldn't. She typed back slowly, hesitating over each word. I, I don't know. It's complicated, he replied almost immediately. I understand. But please think about it. I just want to know them. Lena closed her laptop, rubbed her temples, and tried to focus on work. But nothing else mattered. The day felt longer than usual. Each passing hour waited with uncertainty. That evening, as she cooked dinner, her mind wandered again. She thought of Ethan as he must be now, tall, polished, confident. The life of a world she had never entered. How could someone like him even understand the exhaustion of a single mother? The small victories, the constant worry, the lonely nights. She shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. The twins were laughing at her, making funny faces with noodles, and she smiled at them, forcing herself to be present. The next morning brought a nervous anticipation she hadn't expected. Lena dropped the twins off at preschool and tried to act normal, but her stomach was a bundle of nerves. What if Ethan came? What if he was angry or demanding or worse, uninterested? The thought of seeing him again after 5 years, of letting him into her life and into the lives of the twins, made her chest tighten. When she returned home, she found a sleek black car parked outside. Her heart stopped. There was no mistaking it. He was here. She looked at the twins, who were still asleep, and whispered, "Stay calm. You're just going to meet someone." The doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected. Lena's hands trembled as she opened the door. There he stood, taller than she remembered, wearing a simple shirt and jeans, but there was something in his eyes. Something familiar, soft and hesitant. "Lena," he said quietly, almost a whisper. His voice carried the weight of years, regrets, and unspoken words. "Ethan," she replied, keeping her tone neutral. She didn't know what to expect. "You shouldn't have come." He took a deep breath, glancing past her. "I had to. I need to see them. I need to know. I need to know the truth." The twins ran into the living room, giggling, and Lena knelt down to greet them. "Sweethearts, Ethan is a friend," she said softly. The twins were curious but unafraid, their innocence shielding them from the tension Lena felt. Ethan watched them, his expression softening. For a moment, he looked almost afraid to reach out. Then he slowly extended his hand toward them. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm Ethan." The twins eyed him curiously. One of them stepped forward and held out a small hand. Ethan smiled, taking it carefully. He crouched down to their level, his eyes meeting theirs. "You're beautiful," he said, his voice breaking slightly. Lena felt her chest tighten. This was the man who had once been her world, now standing before her, connecting with her children in a way she had never imagined possible. But trust didn't come easily. Not after years of absence, not after all the nights she had spent worrying alone. They spent the afternoon in careful silence. Lena kept the conversation light, talking about mundane things, school, favorite cartoons, what the twins liked to eat. She watched Ethan, seeing him relax slowly as the twins laughed at his clumsy attempts to play peekaboo and build towers with blocks. At one point, the twins ran to him with a drawing they had made, and he accepted it with genuine delight. Lena watched from the kitchen doorway, heart aching and warming at the same time. She realized that the children had already started to feel comfortable with him. And with that, the wall she had built so carefully around her heart began to tremble. After the twins went down for a nap, Lena and Ethan sat in the living room. The tension returned, heavy and unavoidable. "I don't know what to say," Lena began, keeping her voice calm. 5 years. You just disappeared. You never asked, you didn't even know about them." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, looking older, wearier. "I know," he admitted. I was scared and I was selfish. I didn't know how to handle it, and I thought I could forget. But I couldn't. Not a day went by that I didn't think about you. About them. About what I lost." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. She swallowed hard. "I raised them alone. Every night, every day. I didn't need you, but I needed to protect them from everything. Including you." He nodded slowly. "I understand. And I'm sorry. I know I can't change the past, but I want to be here now, if you let me." She looked at him, studying his face, searching for lies, for motives, but all she saw was sincerity, regret, and a quiet longing that mirrored her own. "You sent me $500,000, she said finally, her voice sharp. "Do you think money can fix this? That it can make up for lost years?" He shook his head. "No, I sent it because I wanted to do something right. because I saw the note about the twins and it broke something inside me. Money isn't everything, Lena. I don't want them to need anything, but I want to be part of their lives too. Not as a gesture, but as their father. She looked away, biting her lip. It wasn't the money that mattered. It was the choice he was making now, the presence he was offering. But could she trust it? Could she trust him after so long, after so many years of absence? The room was silent except for the faint ticking of the wall clock. Lena felt a mix of anger, fear, and longing swirl inside her. She didn't know what the right answer was. She only knew that the twins deserved a father, and maybe she deserved a friend. Someone who understood the weight of love and responsibility. Ethan leaned back, his gaze soft. "I'll wait," he said quietly. "I don't want to rush anything. I want the chance to be here for them, and for you if you let me." Lena felt something shift. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was just the recognition that life had a way of circling back in the strangest ways. She nodded slowly. "We'll see," she said. For the first time in years, Lena felt a flicker of relief. The future was uncertain, messy, and full of questions, but at least now it wasn't lonely. That evening, as she tucked the twins into bed, she whispered softly, "Tomorrow is a new day. We'll figure it out." And somewhere deep inside, she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something different. Because life, unpredictable as it was, had brought them together again, and that was a chance worth holding on to. The days that followed were filled with cautious steps, careful conversations, and a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. Lena found herself watching the twins closely as they laughed and played with Ethan. It was unsettling and beautiful all at once. She had built their lives with her own hands, and now someone from her past, someone who had once held a piece of her heart, was entering that world. Ethan made no grand gestures. He didn't force his way into their routines or demand attention. Instead, he started small. The first morning he came over, he brought a simple breakfast, pancakes shaped like animals, a small gesture that made the twins squeal with delight. Lena stood at the doorway, arms crossed, observing silently. She didn't smile at first. She wasn't sure if she could. "Look, Mommy, a bunny pancake," one of the twins exclaimed, holding it proudly. Ethan smiled, kneeling down beside them. "You two are the reason pancakes taste better," he said gently. His eyes met Lena's for a brief moment, and she noticed a hint of vulnerability there. He wasn't trying to impress her with wealth or charm. He was just trying to connect with the children. That day he stayed until the twins' nap. Lena found herself sitting nearby, sipping her coffee, listening to their laughter. It was an easy sound, one she had missed more than she realized. Every laugh made her heart ache a little, not with sadness but with longing for what could have been. After the nap, the twins woke up and immediately ran to Ethan, tugging at his hands and giggling. Lena felt a flicker of fear. What if they liked him more than her? What if they preferred his presence, his charm, to the quiet world she had built for them? She shook the thought away. That was silly, she told herself. They were children. They needed both of them, not one or the other. Over the next few days, Ethan became a regular part of their lives, though Lena made sure he understood boundaries. He respected them. He showed up to help with homework, even struggling at first to remember the things children needed at their age. He read bedtime stories in voices that made the twins howl with laughter, and he never left without asking if there was anything they needed. One afternoon, Lena returned home from work early, exhausted and drained. She expected the twins to be coloring or watching television quietly. Instead, she found them sprawled on the living room floor, Ethan sitting among them, a board game in the center. "Look who's helping us with the puzzles," one twin exclaimed, pointing at Ethan. Lena smiled softly despite her exhaustion. Seeing him so gentle, so patient, she felt a warmth she hadn't expected. Maybe he could be trusted, maybe he could belong in their lives. But the thought still brought fear. Trust was fragile. It took years to build and seconds to break. That evening, Lena and Ethan sat in the quiet of the kitchen, the twins asleep. She leaned back against the chair, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. "They like you," she said quietly, almost more to herself than to him. "I like them too," he replied gently. "I don't want to force anything, I want to be here, in whatever way they'll let me." Lena nodded, but the words didn't reach the part of her heart that ached with years of absence. It's not that simple, she whispered. They've had their whole lives without you. I've been everything for them. And now you're here, and it's confusing for all of us. Ethan reached across the table but didn't touch her. I know, and I'm not trying to replace you. I want to be a part of their lives. I want to help. If you let me. Lena looked down at her tea, swirling it absent-mindedly. She thought about the lonely night. The moments when she had cried herself to sleep, wishing she had someone to share the weight with. And now, here he was, offering to take some of that weight. But could she trust it? Could she trust him? In the following weeks, Ethan started. Joining them for simple outings, trips to the park, walks down the street, even small errands. He never overstepped. He let Lena lead, always checking in, always respectful. Slowly, the twins grew more comfortable, running toward him without hesitation, sharing their little secrets and stories. Lena watched quietly, a mix of relief and wariness filling her chest. One afternoon, they went to the local playground. Lena watched the twins swing high, their laughter ringing through the air. Ethan stood nearby, gently pushing them when needed, laughing along with their giggles. Lena felt something shift inside her. Maybe he really could be trusted. Maybe he could be part of their lives without threatening what she had built. As the sun began to set, Lena and Ethan walked home with the twins holding their hands. The city lights flickered on, and a calm settled over them. Lena realized she hadn't felt this sense of peace in years. That evening, after tucking the twins into bed, Lena and Ethan sat together on the couch. Silence hung between them, comfortable yet heavy with unspoken words. You're doing well, Lena said finally, breaking the quiet. With them. You're patient. They like you. Ethan smiled softly. Thank you. I'm learning. You're more than just learning, she said, her voice gentle. You care. That's important. He nodded. I do care. About them. About you. About everything I missed. She looked down at her hands. It's hard to forgive years of absence. Hard to trust someone who wasn't there. I know, he said quietly. And I don't expect it all at once. I just want to be here, and I'll wait as long as it takes. Lena felt a lump in her throat. She realized that despite everything, she wanted him there too. Not to replace her, not to erase the past, but to share the present, to share the burden, to share the love that had always been hers alone. Over the next few days, small moments began to matter. Ethan helped with homework, cooked simple meals, and even played little games at night. Lena noticed how he remembered small things the twins liked, little details that made them smile. It wasn't grand gestures or wealth that mattered. It was presence, consistent, gentle, caring presence. One rainy afternoon, Lena caught him sitting with the twins on the living room floor, building a tower of blocks. They were giggling uncontrollably, and he was laughing along with them. Lena leaned against the doorway, watching silently. She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. She realized that the twins were starting to accept him. Slowly, carefully, they were letting him in. And in the process, Lena began to soften too. She saw glimpses of the man she had once loved, not the businessman who had disappeared from her life, but the kind, thoughtful, patient person who was trying to make amends in the simplest ways. That night, after the twins were asleep, Lena and Ethan sat quietly in the kitchen. The air between them was heavy but calm. They're happy, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. And I think I'm starting to trust you. A little. Ethan reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair from her face. That's all I ask. A little. I'll take all the little pieces of trust you can give me. She smiled faintly, feeling the tension in her chest ease. We'll see where this goes, she said softly. But I need to know. You're not here just because of money or guilt. I'm here because of them, he replied gently, and because of you. I'm here because it's the right thing to do, not because of anything else. For the first time in a long while, Lena felt a flicker of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Optimism. Life had been hard, lonely, and exhausting. But now there was a possibility that things could be different. The days turned into weeks, and a routine began to form. Ethan became part of their lives slowly but meaningfully. Lena watched as the twins grew comfortable with him, as he learned the little quirks that made them laugh, as he offered quiet support in ways she hadn't expected. Lena still had moments of doubt, moments where fear and past hurt crept in. But she also had moments of joy, of watching the twins run toward him without hesitation, of seeing his eyes light up when they hugged him, of feeling the weight she carried being shared, if only a little. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And in a life that had been filled with struggle and uncertainty, real felt like a gift. That night, as Lena tucked the twins into bed, she whispered softly, "Tomorrow is another day. We'll face it together." And somewhere, deep inside, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could all be a family, in their own imperfect, beautiful way. The next few weeks brought small changes that quietly reshaped everything. Lena began to notice how the twins' laughter filled the apartment again, louder and more carefree than before. Their days no longer felt rushed or heavy. There was a lightness in the air that hadn't been there in years, and though she tried to hide it, she knew where it came from. Ethan had become part of their routine in ways that felt natural, almost gentle. He didn't just visit now and then. He helped with school drop-offs, cooked dinner once in a while, and even read bedtime stories when Lena came home late from work. The twins had grown used to him being around. They called him by his name easily, asked him for help with little things, and sometimes even reached for his hand without hesitation. One evening, after a long day, Lena found Ethan and the twins sitting on the couch, surrounded by papers and crayons. They were making cards. Each one had messy hearts and wobbly letters. "What's all this?" she asked, leaning against the doorway with a small smile. One of the twins held up a card proudly. "It's for you, Mommy. We made thank you cards." Lena laughed, feeling her throat tighten. "For me? What did I do?" Ethan looked up, smiling. "They said they wanted to thank you for being the best mom in the world." Lena sat beside them, touched. The twins handed her their drawings, bright, colorful, full of love. She felt tears forming in her eyes, not from sadness, but from gratitude. For years she had worked quietly, never expecting thanks. Hearing it now, even from little voices, felt like healing. After the twins went to bed, Lena and Ethan stayed in the living room, the soft hum of the city filling the silence. She turned to him, her voice gentle. "You didn't have to do that." He shrugged lightly. "I didn't. They did. They wanted to show you how much they love you. I just helped a little." She smiled faintly. "They've gotten attached to you." "I've gotten attached to them," he said quietly. His voice held a truth that made her chest tighten. Lena looked down at her hands. "You've done a lot for them, for me. But I need to know, what happens when this stops feeling new to you? When life gets busy again?" Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I've thought about that. I can't change what I did before, Lena. I can't undo the years I wasn't here, but what I have now with them, with you, I don't want to lose it again. I don't care how busy life gets. I want to be here." His voice was steady, calm. There was no charm or promise of wealth behind it, just quiet honesty. Lena felt something inside her soften, but she wasn't ready to admit it yet. The following weekend, Ethan suggested taking the twins to the zoo. Lena hesitated at first, worried it would feel strange, but she agreed. The day turned out better than she imagined. The twins were full of excitement, their laughter echoing across the open spaces. Ethan carried them on his shoulders, pointed out animals, and bought them ice cream that melted faster than they could eat it. Lena watched them, her heart swelling with emotions she couldn't name. Seeing him with them, patient and kind, was something she had dreamed about quietly for years. It was a picture of a life she thought she would never have, a life filled with balance, love, and shared moments. Later that day, as they sat on a bench watching the sunset, Ethan turned to her. "Thank you for letting me come. This means a lot to me." Lena looked at him, her expression soft. "You make them happy. That's what matters." He hesitated for a moment. "Do you ever think about us?" She froze for a second, caught off guard. "Us?" she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. He nodded. "Not the past. Not what went wrong. Just what could still be." Lena took a deep breath, feeling the cool breeze brush against her face. "I don't know," she admitted. "I've spent so long keeping my heart safe, protecting it from things that hurt. I'm not sure I know how to let anyone back in." Ethan looked down, his voice gentle. "I don't expect you to. I just want you to know that I'm here. Not just for them, but for you too. If you ever let me." His words hung in the air between them, heavy but sincere. Lena didn't answer. She couldn't. Her heart was caught between gratitude and fear. In the days that followed, she found herself thinking about that moment over and over. The way he said it, the honesty in his voice, it lingered. She tried to focus on work, on the twins, on anything else, but his presence had quietly settled into her world. One night, after a particularly tiring day, Lena came home to find dinner already made. The twins were happily eating while Ethan stood by the stove wearing an apron that barely fit him. "I figured I'd give you a break," he said, smiling awkwardly. "Hope that's okay." She laughed softly. "You? Cooking?" "I'm learning," he said proudly, showing her a slightly overcooked dish. The food was simple, but warm, and the moment was peaceful. For the first time, Lena felt the sharp edges of her life begin to smooth out. As the twins went to bed, she found herself sitting on the couch beside Ethan again. The silence between them was no longer uncomfortable. "You're changing things," she said quietly. "I didn't think you could, but you are." He looked at her, his eyes steady. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" She smiled faintly. "I haven't decided yet." Ethan laughed softly. "Fair enough." Over time, their conversations grew deeper. They talked about the past, not to reopen old wounds, but to understand. Ethan spoke about his mistakes, his regrets, and the loneliness that came with success. Lena listened quietly, sometimes angry, sometimes sad, but mostly understanding. She realized that people could change, maybe not completely, but enough to want to do better. One evening, Ethan handed her an envelope. "I've been looking at a house nearby," he said. "It's small, but it's safe. I thought, maybe it could be a fresh start for you and the twins." Lena's heart sank. "Ethan, no," she said firmly. "I don't want that. I don't want anything that feels like charity." "It's not charity," he replied calmly. "It's love. It's wanting you to have something better." She shook her head. "I appreciate it, I really do. But I need to do this my way. I need to know that I can stand on my own even if you're here." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding. "Then I'll wait. You tell me when it feels right. I just want you to know I'll always try to help, in ways that feel right to you." Lena looked at him for a long moment, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through her chest. She wasn't used to someone listening, to someone respecting her choices. "Thank you," she said softly. That night, as she lay in bed, she couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he looked at the twins, the way he respected her boundaries, the way he seemed to understand her silence. It was different now. The anger she had once felt had faded into something gentler. The next morning, she woke up early and looked out the window. The sun was rising, painting the sky with soft colors. She thought about everything, the years she had spent alone, the pain, the strength, the love she had poured into raising her children. And now, the possibility of sharing that love with someone who had once broken her heart but was now trying to mend it piece by piece. When Ethan came by later that day, she met him at the door with a small smile. Come in, she said quietly. He hesitated, sensing something different in her tone. Everything okay? She nodded. Yes. I think it's time we stop being scared of what's next. He looked at her, unsure what to say. Lena continued, her voice steady but soft. You've been here for weeks, helping, caring, trying, and I see it. I see the man you're trying to be. So maybe we can try too. Not rush, not pretend the past didn't happen way, but start fresh. Ethan's eyes softened, his voice barely above a whisper. I'd like that. More than anything. And for the first time, Lena smiled without fear. It wasn't a smile of forgiveness or finality. It was a smile of hope. Because life, she realized, wasn't about perfect endings. It was about second chances, quiet understanding, and the courage to believe that love, real love, could survive even after everything had fallen apart. That night, as the twins fell asleep with the comfort of both their parents nearby, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. It wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of something new. Time had a way of softening everything. The sharpness of pain, the weight of loneliness, and even the hesitation to trust again. Months had passed since Ethan had come back into Lena's life, and while not every day was perfect, something about their rhythm now felt real. The chaos of their past had slowly turned into calm, and even the twins could sense it. They laughed more, played more, and often ran around the small apartment with the kind of joy that only children could have. Lena watched them sometimes from the kitchen, smiling quietly as they built towers with blocks or made up silly songs. Their laughter filled every corner of the home, a sound she had once thought she'd never hear again in that way. Ethan had become a steady presence. He didn't try to fix everything. He just showed up. Whether it was helping with homework, cooking dinner, or picking the twins up from school when Lena had to work late, he was there. It wasn't about grand gestures anymore. It was about small, steady moments that built trust back piece by piece. One morning, while Lena was making breakfast, Ethan walked in holding 2 paper cups of coffee. You're up early, he said with a smile. She looked at him over her shoulder. Some of us have work to do, she said playfully. He laughed, handing her a cup. I know. I'm learning. The twins ran in a few seconds later, still in their pajamas, asking for pancakes. Ethan helped, set the table, and for a moment it felt like they were an ordinary family, something simple and beautiful. Later that day, while the twins were at school, Lena and Ethan went for a walk in the park nearby. The trees were turning golden with the change of season, and the air was crisp. Ethan broke the silence first. I've been thinking about the future, he said softly. Lena looked at him curiously. The future? Yeah, he said. Not the far future, just what comes next. For us, for the twins. Lena stayed quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about that too, she admitted. It's strange. I used to only think one day at a time. I never let myself plan too far ahead. He nodded slowly. You had to survive. She glanced at him. Exactly. They walked for a while without speaking. The sound of children playing in the distance mixed with the rustle of leaves. Ethan finally stopped and turned toward her. I want to do this right, Lena. I don't want to rush you or make promises I can't keep. But I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere this time. I want to be part of your life. And theirs. For good. His voice was calm but sincere, and Lena felt her throat tighten. For years she had dreamed of hearing something like that. Not words from someone trying to impress her, but a simple truth said from the heart. I believe you, she said quietly. He smiled faintly, relief in his eyes. That's all I needed to hear. The days that followed felt lighter. They started spending weekends together, picnics in the park, movie nights with popcorn, even lazy Sundays where the twins built forts out of blankets and made everyone crawl inside. There was laughter, small arguments, and tiny moments that made life feel full again. One evening, as they all sat together watching a movie, one of the twins fell asleep on Ethan's shoulder. The other leaned against Lena, half asleep too. Ethan turned his head slightly and looked at her. "They trust me," he whispered. Lena smiled softly. "They do." He looked at her again, his voice barely audible. "Do you?" She paused, meeting his eyes. "I'm getting there." It was the truth. Slow, careful, honest. Trust didn't rebuild overnight, but it was growing, quietly and steadily. As winter came, life grew busier. Work, school events, and small everyday things filled their days. Yet through it all, Ethan never drifted away. He came to every school, play, every parent-teacher meeting, every small celebration the twins had. The twins started drawing pictures with all four of them in it, stick figures holding hands, smiling. Lena kept those drawings tucked away, a reminder of how far they had come. One night, after the twins had gone to bed, Ethan came over with something in his hand. It was a small wooden box. "What's this?" Lena asked, curious. "Something I've been meaning to give you," he said. Inside was a small silver locket. When she opened it, she saw two tiny pictures, the twins' faces smiling brightly. Lena blinked back tears. "You had this made?" He nodded. "I wanted you to have something that reminds you you're not alone anymore." She looked up at him, emotion filling her chest. "You really mean that, don't you?" "With everything I have," he said quietly. Lena couldn't speak. She simply nodded and closed the box, holding it close. Over the next few weeks, Ethan began planning something else, a surprise. He wanted to do something not for himself, but for her and the twins. On a quiet Saturday morning, he told Lena to get the kids ready. "Just trust me," he said with a grin. They drove for about an hour until they reached a small neighborhood on the edge of town. Ethan parked in front of a cozy two-story house with white walls and a small garden out front. Lena frowned. "Ethan, what is this?" He smiled nervously. "Just come see." They walked inside, and the moment she stepped in, Lena froze. The house was warm and filled with light. The walls were freshly painted, and there were two small bedrooms upstairs, just the right size for the twins. Ethan turned to her. "I've been working on this for months. It's yours, all of it. I know you didn't want anything before, but this isn't about money. It's about giving you and the twins a place that feels like home." Lena felt her chest tighten. "Ethan, I can't." He stopped her gently. "You can, and you don't owe me anything. This isn't a favor. It's a gift, from someone who finally understands what really matters." She stood there silently, her eyes filling with tears. The twins ran around excitedly, claiming their rooms, their laughter echoing through the empty halls. Lena looked at Ethan, her voice trembling. "Why are you doing all this?" He took a step closer, his eyes steady. "Because I love them. And I love you. I don't want to make up for the past anymore, and I want to build something new." Lena stared at him for a long moment, then slowly smiled. "You really have changed." He nodded. "I had to lose everything to realize what I truly wanted." That night, after the twins had fallen asleep in their new rooms, Lena stood in the living room, looking out the window. The house was quiet, peaceful. Ethan walked in quietly and stood beside her. "Feels different, doesn't it?" he said softly. "It feels right," she replied. He looked at her for a moment. "Lena, I don't know what the future holds, but whatever it brings, I want to face it with you, together." She turned to him, smiling faintly. "Then let's do that." He reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, like they had always fit that way. Months later, life found its balance again. The twins thrived at school, their laughter filling every morning. Lena started a new job she loved, one that gave her both stability and joy. Ethan kept his promise. He stayed grounded, humble, and close. They weren't the same people they once were, but maybe that was the point. Sometimes life had to fall apart for better things to take its place. On a quiet evening, as the sun set behind their house, Lena sat on the porch, watching the twins chase each other across the yard. Ethan brought her a cup of tea and sat beside her. They're happy, he said softly. They are, she agreed. And so am I, he smiled, looking at her. You know, it all started with a grocery list. Lena laughed. A mistake that changed everything. Maybe not a mistake, he said gently. Maybe it was fate's way of giving us a second chance. Lena looked at him, her eyes soft. Maybe it was. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe that good things could come back. That love, when it's real, doesn't end with heartbreak. It just waits quietly until both hearts are ready again. The wind brushed through the trees, carrying the sound of the twins' laughter through the air. The light faded slowly, wrapping the world in a calm golden hue. Lena took a deep breath, her hand still in his. We're home, she whispered. Ethan smiled. Yes, we are. And as the stars began to appear one by one, their story, once broken and uncertain, finally settled into peace, filled with love, forgiveness, and the quiet strength of a family who had found their way back to each other.